Hello. I I want to talk about something tonight. Uh, well, earlier vlogs, I knew uh, the story I was going to tell was quite old. Now I started vlogging on a daily basis, and it's not that all the old stuff is already told, but well, the idea was I'm gonna summarize the uh, the daytime broadcasting on more on a newspaper base, but that newspaper today is Facebook. So and other platforms, but let's keep it simple. Facebook. So that is daytime journalism in a fabulous code. And well, then it is possible. Then the idea was then I'm gonna summarize today's issues in a live uh, YouTube video. Um, but it is, of course, to me, it is boring if I put it like a news emission of the news. I feel free to do whatever I want. But of course, then the thing I'm telling right now is that is improvised. That's not something I've done before many times. The story I'm going to tell now is like completely new, and I like it that way. I want to be new and trying out new things because I myself get bored very easy when put in a frame that is repeating itself, and that is a thing I, I think is boring. And but of course, sometimes then the stories are not perfectly worked out. But I'm telling this because somebody might say, well, you could have done it better or something. And that is true if I would have taken more time to do it, then, but I don't need to be perfect. I just like the idea that I'm broadcasting in the evening on YouTube, and if the story is not at that time perfect, later on I will I can always change it or even tell it again, and then I will improve. You see? So I don't really care if somebody would say, and then he is right. It would be better it would be if you take more time, and then you can, well, make it more perfect or something. The idea of today, partly based on stories of this day, this afternoon, is I call it a strategotrip. It is the idea of the game. I played it a lot when I was younger, with friends, and we played ours stratego. Uh, well, I liked that game at the time. These days I'm not playing it anymore. Uh, wow, what I say? Kind of bored with it. But I was thinking, what if I'm gonna mm, put the stratego uh, ranks into the fabulous world, the world of fabulism, because that's the case. Um, when the idea is, if one follows me and I'm uh, putting those officers and these ranks in the army, if I put them in nature, then you get uh, a universal picture. And it's not that the war then will be completely over, but the war between nations, or even the war based on religious differences, uh, might end. And so that is that makes me almost excited to do this. Well, there is the marshal. The marshal, I always considered then that must be the lion. The lion, that is the marshal, the field marshal. But these days, I'm not so sure anymore. Maybe it would be better to say the fox. The fox is the marshal. Why? Because the colonel is the bear, and the big mean warlord in my fables is the polar bear. But at the height of the polar bear, there is no lion. So that made me decide then to replace the field marshal lion for a fox, because there are polar foxes. So the polar fox becomes the marshal. And then, of course, in between there is the general. Well, the general, I always had this link, because in Dutch it's very funny actually. In Dutch there is almost the same word for general is generaal, and aal, that is part of that word, is eel. So in Dutch there is, maybe it's not right if I say it, but it looks like there is a connection between eel, and there is also in Dutch a connection between aal and taal. And taal in Dutch is language. So general could be translated as generally speaking, and there is then one exception, that is this fox, who runs faster than general speaking, and that is the general. And as I said, it is a eel, so it is, but some say it is a snake then, or but let's say it's an eel. Well, then I was having a problem with the flag. Well, I know beyond the fox there is something in the sky which the fox is running, and there is something in the sky shadowing or above, like well, let's say like an angel or something, but it's just a bird, of course. So the angel of death, one could say, or the well, the bird on that fox running so fast, I think is a spoonbill, but it will turn pink. It will turn pink because you got them in white, but I think they turn pink. But the white spoonbill then would be the flag in the comparison. Okay, so far the stratego trip, comparing then first thing is, when you do it this way, then it gets universal, and then the war is will maybe it's easier than to see that the war will be taking place on another level. So it's not necessarily one fox fighting another fox, and two marshals. That's the stratego ID. Two marshals fighting one another. Now, in when I put it in a fabulous code, then it is just the polar bear and the fox, and the polar fox, who are the extreme ones who have gone too far, and they can't get sleep anymore, and they suffering insomnia, and that is the twist I'd like to give it. So there actually the war stops, and one should try to avoid insomnia. So the polar bear somehow in the real world also involved as a colonel with the war will get sleepless because he went too far, and there is this other bear, the hibernating bear, who sleeps in winter sleep, and that is the bear, the alternative, who avoided then the war and accepted instead the world of fables and the world of fastfabulist seastarpenguin. And doing so, she gets dreams and she gets sleep, and that is eventually a better choice than the polar bear, who, well, he can't go back. He started these wars, he started these murders, he went too far, and he will forever be in that war, and he gets sleepless when he finds out there was actually an alternative. So it is also the polar bear who will probably be the biggest opponent of fastfabulist seastarpenguin, because if the things seastarpenguin saying are, well, true or more and more accepted as then a nice story to sleep on, it doesn't really matter if it's true. True is not it's not that important. It's considered true or not true. The thing is it working? Will that other beer reading then the fables get sleep? And if that other beer then gets sleep and loses interest in the story of war, and so will not participate in the war, and become then like first a wife that turns away from her warlord man, and then of course later there is the similar man who is listening then to that wife who listened to the seastarpenguin. So it is the colonel in the fable which I think is the biggest opponent of the fabulist, the one who is telling the universe should be seen like this way, and of course telling in his fable that the polar bear is the one who is to blame for the war, and because he is the colonel. Okay, another thing then is in the traditional stratego there is no admiral. There is no admiral, and in the fable world there is an admiral. There is Admiral Pelican, but there is then the same problem with Admiral Pelican. That is her man then is at the aircraft carrier, and he is well, following the orders of actually the flag or the president, and that is the pink spoonbill. Eventually it starts with a white spoonbill, but he turns pink because he gets involved in the war, and then he finds himself under actually the colonel, the polar bear. So it is but it is he, the flag, then who commands to fire, and then that command will be followed by the Pelican Admiral. But at the same time there is of course like with the bear, then the wife of the Pelican admiral who wants to avoid the war. And this is a very well, then I've got today some thinking about that, and then I see how Goose, Sea Star Goose, who was the first fabulist, knew this, and he said to Pelican, I know you're gonna have problems because your man now maybe not so involved because it is peace, but tomorrow he will be involved in this war, and then you get somehow dirty, and then then we'll speak again, because I am the one who has foreseen this, and I'm trying to stay out of that war, and that's why I call myself a fabulist. So the pelican is then was somehow, she knew about so it's actually then then she should go the way, of course, of the sea star goose, if she is having problems with her man. Then she should listen to sea star goose. But sea star goose is going very far, because if she then would only fish and not go that far, that she is the wife of the admiral, but she would be just the fisherman's wife, then Sea Star Goose is going that far that he is saying fishing is bad too, and then you will be fished by the big fish someday. And that's the same thing Sea Star Goose is telling to the penguin. They should not fish because they will be fished. So even when she would be a fisherman's wife and then somehow be less in that war, then still the lessons or the way of Sea Star Goose, the fabulist, might be too much. And therefore, of course, there is the difference between Goose, Sea Star Goose, and Pelican, and Admiral Pelican. So that is that is actually the story of today. At the point of Sea Star Goose, one thing I can add, then it is that's something interesting. Sea Star Goose will end up like Snowdrop. So Sea Star Goose will be that rebel heart, but the bear is everywhere too. So the polar bear in north is maybe the Sea Star Goose goes all the way up to the north, and then he will see confirmed what the penguin is saying, that the polar bear is the biggest warlord. But when he is all the way up there with his fabulism in the north, and he is able to see what penguin also is saying, then he will end up like Snowdrop. And there is then how the story goes on, that you need fast fabulism beyond regular or original fabulism of Sea Star Goose. So there comes the fast fabulist part, which of course is based on the lessons of Sea Star Goose, but was not enough to defeat then completely the polar bear. And then therefore one needs the penguins. That's the stratego trip. Alright.